Chapter 1. The Leadership Burnout Crisis of 2024. At 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March 2024, Sarah Chen found herself staring at her laptop screen in her kitchen, trying to finish work that was due first thing in the morning. 3 months later, she'd be on medical leave for stress-related health issues. 6 months after that, she'd resign from leadership entirely, joining the growing ranks of talented leaders who concluded that effective leadership and personal well-being are mutually exclusive. If Sarah's story sounds familiar, this chapter might just save your career. Welcome back to Leadership Without Limits. I'm Vincent Walters, author of Burn Bright Not Out, Stop Leadership Burnout Before It Destroys Your Career. This is Chapter 1, The Leadership Burnout Crisis of 2024. From my book about ending leadership burnout before it destroys your career and costs companies billions. If this is your first time here, I help exhausted leaders transform from surviving to thriving without sacrificing results. And if you're one of the 53% of managers experiencing burnout right now, you're definitely in the right place. Let's dive into Chapter 1, the story that started everything. At 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March of 2024, Sarah Chen found herself staring at her laptop screen in her kitchen, trying to finish a budget analysis that was due first thing in the morning. As the operations director for a mid-sized healthcare company, she had started her day at 6 a.m. with back-to-back meetings, spent her lunch hour mediating a conflict between two department heads, and worked through dinner to catch up on the emails that had accumulated during her day of actual work. This wasn't unusual. It was Tuesday. 3 months later, Sarah would be on medical leave for stress-related health issues. 6 months after that, she would resign from management entirely, joining the growing ranks of talented leaders who have concluded that effective leadership and personal well-being are mutually exclusive. Sarah's story isn't unique. It's being replayed in hospitals and schools, government offices and corporate headquarters, nonprofits and startups across every sector of our economy. The leadership burnout crisis of 2024 isn't just about individual managers struggling to keep up. It's about a fundamental mismatch between what we're asking leaders to do and what human beings can sustainably deliver. The hidden cost of management in 2024. The statistics paint a sobering picture. In 2024, 53% of managers report experiencing burnout, a 20% increase from pre-pandemic levels. More than 1,400 CEOs stepped down in 2023, representing a 50% increase from the previous year. Principal turnover in education has reached crisis levels, with entire districts struggling to fill administrative positions. Congressional staff turnover during high-pressure legislative sessions regularly exceeds 40%. But these numbers tell only part of the story. For every leader who burns out visibly enough to make headlines or statistics, there are countless others who continue functioning while operating far below their potential. They're the department heads who have stopped innovating because they're too exhausted to think strategically. They're the team leaders who avoid difficult conversations because they lack the emotional energy to navigate conflict. They're the managers who delegate less effectively because explaining tasks feels harder than doing them personally. The hidden cost of management burnout extends far beyond the leaders themselves. When the principal of Fremont Union High School District's Special Education Department described feeling overwhelmed by information complexities and emotional anxiety, the impact rippled through every teacher, every student, and every family in the district. When a Fortune 500 company's regional managers become slow and indecisive when faced with important decisions, the entire organization suffers reduced agility and effectiveness. Teams led by burned-out managers show measurably lower engagement, higher turnover, and decreased performance across multiple metrics. The irony is stark. In our effort to maximize leadership productivity, we've created conditions that systematically undermine the very outcomes we're trying to achieve. The financial reality. The financial costs are staggering. The average cost of replacing a middle manager ranges from $75,000 to $125,000, accounting for recruitment, training, and lost productivity during the transition. For senior leaders, replacement costs can exceed $500,000. But even these figures underestimate the true costs because they don't account for the institutional knowledge lost, the team disruption caused, or the long-term cultural damage created when burnout becomes normalized. Perhaps most troubling is the talent pipeline effect. As word spreads about the unsustainable nature of leadership roles, fewer high-performing individual contributors are willing to accept promotions into management. Organizations find themselves with a shortage of qualified candidates for leadership positions, not because people lack the skills, but because they've witnessed what the role demands and concluded it's not worth the personal cost. The 2025 leadership crisis isn't just about overwork. It's about the fundamental structure of how we've designed management roles. We've created positions that require superhuman capacity while providing human-level support. We've expanded the scope of management responsibilities without expanding the resources to manage them effectively. We've built organizations that depend on individual heroics rather than sustainable systems. Why traditional time management isn't enough? Walk into any bookstore or scroll through any professional development website, and you'll find hundreds of resources promising to solve your productivity challenges. Time blocking, productivity apps, the getting things done methodology, the Pomodoro technique, all valuable tools that have helped millions of people organize their work more effectively. But if traditional time management techniques were sufficient for today's leadership challenges, we wouldn't be facing a burnout crisis. The problem isn't that modern leaders lack access to good time management advice. It's that time management alone doesn't address the systemic challenges that make leadership roles unsustainable. Consider the typical advice. Block time for important work. Excellent guidance. But what happens when your time blocks are consistently interrupted by genuine crises that require immediate attention? Prioritize your most important tasks. Sound strategy, but what happens when everything is labeled as urgent by different stakeholders who all have legitimate claims on your time? The fundamental limitation of traditional time management is that it assumes you have control over your time. But modern leadership roles are characterized by exactly the opposite. Constant interruptions, competing demands, and responsibilities that don't fit neatly into scheduled blocks. The school principal can't schedule a time block for handling student disciplinary issues because those issues arise unpredictably. The hospital department head can't plan when a staffing crisis will emerge. The nonprofit executive director can't control when a major donor will request an urgent meeting. Traditional time management also assumes that working more efficiently will solve workload problems. But efficiency gains are meaningless when the underlying workload is fundamentally unsustainable. Teaching a manager to process emails 20% faster doesn't help when they're receiving 300% more emails than they can reasonably handle. Improving meeting efficiency doesn't solve the problem when the number of meetings required exceeds the available time. Most critically, traditional time management focuses on individual behavior change while ignoring the systemic factors that create unsustainable workloads. It places the burden of solving workload problems entirely on the individual leader rather than addressing the organizational structures, cultural expectations, and resource constraints that make those problems inevitable. The result is a generation of leaders who are highly skilled at time management techniques, but still experiencing burnout. They can optimize their calendars, streamline their workflows, and implement sophisticated productivity systems. But they're still drowning because the fundamental equation, too much work, too little time, too few resources, remains unchanged. What's needed isn't better time management, but better workload management. This requires thinking systemically about how work flows through organizations, how decisions get made, how resources are allocated, and how success is measured. It requires addressing not just individual productivity, but team capacity, organizational culture, and leadership sustainability. How this book will help you survive and thrive. This book is different from traditional management guides because it starts with a different premise. The problem isn't that you're not working hard enough, smart enough, or efficiently enough. The problem is that we've created leadership roles that are structurally unsustainable and then blamed individuals when they struggle to sustain them. Instead of offering another productivity system, this book provides a comprehensive framework for redesigning your leadership approach around sustainability. Instead of teaching you to work more hours, it teaches you to work more strategically. Instead of helping you manage your time better, it helps you manage your workload, your energy, and your boundaries more effectively. The strategies in this book are built on three foundational principles that distinguish sustainable leadership from traditional management approaches. Systems thinking over individual heroics. Rather than relying on your personal capacity to handle unlimited demands, you'll learn to build systems that distribute work effectively, prevent crises before they occur, and create organizational structures that support sustainable performance. Long-term effectiveness. Over short-term achievement, every strategy is evaluated not just for its immediate impact, but for its sustainability over time. You'll learn to make decisions that preserve your capacity for future challenges, rather than depleting it for immediate results. Collective well-being. Over individual sacrifice, sustainable leadership recognizes that your well-being and your team's effectiveness are interconnected. You'll learn to create cultures where everyone can perform at their best without sacrificing their health or relationships. Throughout this book, you'll find case studies from leaders across sectors who have successfully navigated the transition from unsustainable to sustainable leadership practices. From strategic decision-making about workload management to Fortune 500 companies that have redesigned management roles to prevent burnout, these examples demonstrate that sustainable leadership isn't just possible, it's more effective. You'll also find practical tools and frameworks that you can implement immediately. The delegation matrix that helps you identify which responsibilities truly require your personal attention. The boundary-setting scripts that allow you to protect your time without damaging relationships. The energy management techniques that help you maintain peak performance without burning out. But this book goes beyond individual strategies to address the systemic changes needed to create sustainable leadership cultures. You'll learn how to advocate upward for realistic workload expectations, how to redesign team workflows to prevent collective burnout, and how to build business cases for the resources and support that sustainable leadership requires. The goal isn't to help you work longer or harder, it's to help you work in ways that are sustainable over the long term. It's to help you build a leadership approach that allows you to be effective today while preserving your capacity to be effective tomorrow and next year and throughout your career. This book is for the department head who wants to stop choosing between job performance and personal health. It's for the team leader who knows there has to be a better way to manage competing demands. It's for the organization that wants to create leadership roles that attract and retain top talent instead of burning them out. Most importantly, this book is for anyone who believes that effective leadership and personal well-being aren't mutually exclusive. That with the right strategies, systems, and support, it's possible to build a leadership career that sustains you while you sustain others. The leadership burnout crisis is real, but it's not inevitable. The pages that follow will show you how to navigate the challenges of modern leadership while maintaining your effectiveness, your health, and your sense of purpose. You'll learn not just how to survive as a leader, but how to thrive in ways that create positive ripple effects for everyone around you. The time for accepting burnout as the price of leadership is over. The time for building sustainable leadership practices is now. Let me summarize the three critical insights from Chapter 1. First, 53% of managers are experiencing burnout, a 20% increase from pre-pandemic levels. This isn't just individual failure. It's a systemic crisis costing companies billions. Second, traditional time management isn't enough because you don't actually control your time as a leader. You're dealing with constant interruptions, competing demands, and responsibilities that don't fit into neat time blocks. Third, this crisis isn't about you not working hard enough or smart enough. It's about structurally unsustainable leadership roles that require superhuman capacity while providing human-level support. The solution isn't working harder. It's working more systematically and sustainably. If Chapter 1 opened your eyes to why you've been struggling and why it's not your fault, the complete Burn Bright Not Out contains the full roadmap Sarah Chen wished she'd had. You'll get the systems thinking frameworks, the delegation matrices, and the boundary-setting scripts that prevent burnout before it starts, plus real case studies from leaders who made the transition from unsustainable to sustainable leadership. Grab your copy on Amazon using the link in the description, https://a.co/d/izbgy3k. But here's where your real transformation begins. If you're ready to stop just understanding burnout and actually eliminate it from your leadership, I've created the complete Stop Leadership Burnout before it destroys your career course. This goes way beyond the book. You get step-by-step video modules, implementation worksheets, and direct access to me for your specific burnout challenges. You'll learn exactly how to redesign your leadership approach around sustainability, not just survival. My YouTube subscribers get exclusive access through this link, https://vincentwalters.mikajabi.com, offers enthusgabium ours checkout. And honestly, after hearing Sarah's story, can you afford to wait? Subscribe if you're ready to break the cycle of leadership burnout. Comment below, what part of Sarah's story hit closest to home for you? Hit that bell so you don't miss Chapter 2, The Modern Manager's Dilemma, where we dive into why traditional time management actually makes burnout worse. Remember, the leadership burnout crisis is real, but it's not inevitable. You don't have to choose between job performance and personal health. Sarah's story doesn't have to be your story. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week in Chapter 2, The Modern Manager's Dilemma, where we explore why all those productivity techniques you've tried aren't working and what actually does. Until then, burn bright, not out.